War gives nothing but destruction and ruin everywhere. Save the world from the war. Several international days are celebrated by the United Nations in a year, which highlighted the importance of a global problem or event in the whole world and raised the human consciousness as a whole. But May 8 and 9 are 2 days of international. There are those on the surface that are celebrated around the world to remember and recognize the sacrifices of those who lost their lives during the Second World War, and for this, the decision was made on November 22, 2004. Many years after the end of the Second World War, the United Nations General Assembly, in its own resolution number 2659, stated that on May 8, 1945, Adolf Hitler, Nazi forces, Germany had accepted the unconditional surrender. 5 to 7 million people were killed in World War II. At that time, the total population, about 3% of people, lost their lives. According to conservative estimates, 80% of the dead were men. Among these 70 million people who died, 200 million Russian, 100 million Chinese, and 3.8 million Indians were included, while it is said that 30 millions of them were killed by the former Soviet Union. A percentage were from Central Asia states that became independent in 1990, including Kyrgyzstan, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. The total number of German soldiers and civilians killed was 4.2 millions, and the total Japanese killed was 2.3 million. Similarly, British and French casualties were proportionally less than Germans and Japanese. Among these who died in Europe, the largest number of Jews belonging to any one nations or race was said to be 6 million. L.J. Foreman wrote about it 9 years ago. Foreman has commented that during the Second World War in 1939, when the total population of the world was 2.3 billion, Adolf Hitler killed 35.3% of the total population of Jews worldwide. In 2009, the total population of the world was 6.7 billion, and in these 70 years, the total population had increased by 300%. While the total Jewish population was 1.3 million, according to Foreman, if 6 million Jews had not been killed in 2009, their number in the world would have been 50 million. It is worth nothing here that in 2004, 59 years after the Second World War, was the United Nations General Assembly decided to remember those who died during the Second World War and recognize their sacrifices. One of the reasons for this that after the war, Western Europe, Germany, France, Great Britain, and other countries except the United States, Canada, Australia, and Japan turned the wars enmities into friendship. But in the Cold War, all of them were united against the former Soviet Union. Just 3 years after 9/11, the world began to fear yet another devastating war, and 14 years after 2004, it has become abundantly clear that like the First and Second World Wars, any more future was imminent. The war will be fought in Asia rather than in Europe, especially Western Europe, and the unfortunate fact is that today the world's most destructive non-nuclear weapons are being used in our region. Pope Francis condemned the use of mother of all bombs in Afghanistan last year and said that mother is a symbol of love and peace. It is not right to use such a sacred word for such a terrible weapon. On the one hand, this is the situation. On the other hand, the atmosphere of peace in our region is rapidly turning into the clouds of war. And neighboring countries like Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, India, which is apart from SAARC, CEO, Shanghai and BRICS, there are also members of organizations. Their relationship is reaching a point where sparks can turn into flames due to intensity of the conflict, and this happens when a threshing floor is left in the sun for a few days after the repenning of a good agriculture crop. Go and start sparking near it. Although it is a good thing the wind is not strong, but it is better to wait until the sparks nearby are extinguished first. Then the strong wind will not be able to stop anything. On May 8 and 9, when the world was commemorating those who died in the World War II, according to the United Nations, we should remember that at that time, 3.8 million people of undivided India had lost their lives. Central Asia, including 2 million people of Russia and 1 million people of China, were killed. From this war, Western Europe, America, Canada, Australia, Germany and Japan all learned a lesson, but we, who have not now developed compared to the past, now Russia, China, India and Pakistan, who are not only nuclear weapons, but nuclear powers, but now economic. According to Iran, including Afghanistan, Central Asia, half of the world population, and in terms of area, they own more than half of the world's resources. They are negligent about the war. These countries and their people are now going to be the destiny of the world. But if we commit mistakes, the losses resulting from the war will be much greater than the limits of our estimates. Therefore, we should settle matter among the 7 overseas mediators, and on this occasion, Pakistan, Iran and Iran and Afghanistan in the first phase, including these 3 countries with the countries of Central Asia, with the involvement of China, India and Russia. And matters should be settled on a sustainable basis. It is a bitter reality that proxy war is going on in the countries of this region. Accusation and propaganda are the weapons of such a war, which requires a skillful diplomacy by restoring natural trust with great sincerity and passion for peace. For this, first of all, these countries will have to avoid bullying and threats among themselves. Here, these countries and their leadership should keep in mind the basic fact that it is true that a war is started by a country or a party or a country. To stop or end the war doesn't happen. And here we should remember the bitter fact that although the first and second great wars were not ours, the majority of the dead were ours, and now, if God willing, we start a war ourselves, then the question beyond that should not be thought of by the leaders of these countries. The Cold War that started after the Second World War was also ended in 1990. And if we don't recognize the end, at least we will believe that Berlin Wall is no more and that East and West Germany are once again one country instead of the former Soviet Union. There is now Russia, and many of the states of Russia are not only now independent countries, but after the end of communism from Eastern Europe and with the expansion of the European Union, many countries of Eastern Europe have joined the European Union. Having one currency, visa and passport are not considered necessary now. While in our country, after 76 years of the three wars, we are still standing against each other despite becoming nuclear powers and have been increasing our war expenses for these 76 years. On November 11, 2018, countries participating in the First World War, commemorating it 100 years later, and once again analyzed that there were major mistakes in the Warsaw part in France after the World War, but unfortunately it has not been done anywhere since the Cold War in 1990. How many mistakes have been made by the United States, Russia, India and other powers and countries of the world, and now after 28 years have been passed. Are these mistakes recognized and corrected? Friends, has the whole world learned any lesson from the mistakes of the past? 86 years ago, when 3 crore Russian, Chinese and 3.8 lakhs Indians were killed, then only the indiscriminate preparation of nuclear weapons even today. But why? Has the whole world learned any lessons from the mistakes of the past? My dear friends, war is the destruction and ruins everywhere. Nothing but that. Now, should we avoid it? Should we avoid it at all costs? For the sake of the humans, for the survival of humanity? Friends, please take care of yourself, your family, friends, relatives, neighbors, all around you, your country and the world and the humanity. Please remember me in your prayers. Goodbye, you all, with love and the good wishes.